Hello my fellow nightcrawlers, welcome to a brand new video. As usual, grab your blankets and grab your snacks and get comfortable because today we're going to the case of Charles Starkweather and Caril Fugate. This is one that's a little bit lesser known, sort of. If you're kind of in the gist of like true crime, I mean you might know about it, but if you don't, that's fine because guess what? I have compiled this amazing video just for you so that way you understand who these people are and what they did. It's almost like that's what I do. I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. I'm going to be putting a major emphasis more on Charles simply because he was the one that kind of wanted to do all the killing. Caril, you know, kind of being an accomplice was more just kind of there. So, I mean, I could do a whole thing where I go into Caril's life and then Charles or something like that, but the main focus is simply because Charles is the one that mainly wanted to do all the killing. So enough of my blabbering, let's just kind of hop in, start talking about Charles, how they met, what led to the events and why they did what they did. It's November 24th of 1938, and the Great Depression is really kicking the United States butt, to put it simply. Charles Starkweather was born on that day, though. He was the third of 7 children. Because it's the frickin' Great Depression, his family was pretty poor. They managed to get by, essentially living paycheck to paycheck, but basically, like, they couldn't really, like, spend any money unnecessarily. A lot of it had purpose. So, food, water, whatever the case may be. It wasn't like he could go down to the local deli and then spend 30 doubloons on some ice cream or something. In school, Charles was the center of attention for a lot of bullying. With his bowed legs and a slight speech impediment, it led to a lot of instances of people making fun of him. A lot of people had just kind of come to accept that Charles was a slow learner, but it was actually because of the fact that he was nearsighted. So any of the things that were like being written up on the board, Charles was like, oh. At the ripe age of 16, Charles decided to drop out of high school because why not, right? It was then 2 years later where he would run into his soon-to-be girlfriend, Caril. Now here's where it's a little creepy. Charles was 18. Caril was 13. Yeah. But apparently they were just madly in love, and it was just meant to be. It was just meant to be. That is a 5-year difference. That is a 5-year difference. Now I know I might get people in the comments saying like, well, Caden, my husband is 28, but I'm 22. There is a vast difference in a 13-year-old child and an 18-year-old child, okay? 18-year-old, technically not a kid, but you get my point. Was your 13-year-old self acting like your 18-year-old self? No. They are very different, very different. At some point in the future, Charles was trying to teach Caril how to drive, and Caril decided to take it upon herself and crash the vehicle. Understandably so, this child is literally 13, 14 years old, so maybe not best to put him behind the behind the wheel. But anyway, car gets crashed, and then Charles's father is like, ayo, dude, that's the last straw. You let some random chick drive this car, you're out. And just kicked him out of the house. During this time, Charles then decided to become a garbage collector and would then try to plan out potential robbery routes while he was doing all the navigating through neighborhoods. He never robbed any banks, but I mean, he started thinking about it. Now here is when stuff just gets crazy. Charles starts thinking to himself, well, I'm tired of living in poverty. I'm tired of having to do this day job BS. I want to make it. I want to be big. And he thinks to himself, you know what the best way to do that is? The best way to make it big is murder, steal, kill, whatever it takes. That's the route that he picks. So, it's late on November 30th of 1957. Starkweather became angry with a service gas station attendant in Lincoln. He became frustrated for the fact that this man refused to sell him a stuffed animal on credit for Caril. He returned several times during the night to purchase small items, such as like gum or cigarettes. The one time that he came in, though, he decided to brandish a shotgun. He forced the person over the counter to give him $100 from the till. He drove Robert Culvert, the man behind the counter, to a remote area where they struggled over the gun, injuring Culvert before Starkweather killed him with a shot to the head. All of this over $100. Like, look, I get it. $100 now is very, very different from $100 then. But like, killing a man over $100? What are you gonna do with that? What are you gonna do with $100? What are you gonna do with $100? That'll get me like 4 records, okay? Come on. Now this is when this guy just starts going crazy. Like he just snaps. He just starts going on a crazy murder spree and just murdering anyone and anything in sight. So, let's hop in. On January 21st of 1958, Charles decided to drive to Caril's house, where then he was denied entry by her mother and stepfather. Following an altercation, he killed both of them, as well as Caril's 2-year-old sister. Charles and Caril decided to take it upon themselves and just crash in the house for like 6 days, while the family is just dead bodies are just chilling in the backyard. Okay. Charles then drove to a farm of a family friend named August Mayer and then killed him. Charles' car did get stuck on the property though. They then decided to hitch a ride with another teenage couple, Robert Jensen and Caril King. This then eventually led to them killing the pair as well as taking their vehicle. Charles is just losing his mind, honestly, at this point. You murder a 2-year-old, you then drive to a family friend's house, your whip gets stuck, you're like, oh man, darn, this sucks, let's just hitchhike and find someone, and then murder a teenage couple for their vehicle? Oh, and by the way, we're not done. There's more. I'm not done yet. We've still got more. It's Jesus. Charles and Caril drove to a suburb in Lincoln, where they then decided to crash in the house of a wealthy industrialist by the name of C. Lar Ward. Charles stabbed their maid Lillian Fensel to death, then waited for Laura and Clara to return home. Charles then decided to kill the family dog by breaking its neck to keep it from alerting the Wards. Clara first arrived alone and then was stabbed to death. It was then later admitted that Charles threw a knife at Clara, but insisted then that Cheryl had stabbed her numerous times, killing her. When Lar Ward returned home that evening, Charles shot and killed him. The murders of these individuals caused a major uproar in the Lancaster County. Of course, any other old, poor person can die, but the second it's a wealthy man, whoa, we gotta start taking this seriously now. We gotta start actually caring. The governor at the time contacted the National Guard. Police were dispatched to multiple houses to do like a search on them and checking like, hey, have you seen these folk? Funnily enough, the Lincoln Police Department was actually accused of incompetence because apparently there were multiple reports of saying, hey, we found the pair, like they're right here, so like come and get them. And they were just never caught at that time. So, it's a good way to go down in history. Incompetence. Nice. So obviously they're starting to kind of put the pieces together, who the people might be, some vehicles to look out for and whatnot. So they need to get a new whip. In search of a new car, they came across a traveling salesman by the name of Merle Cullison, sleeping in his Buick along the highway. After they had awakened, he was fatally shot. It's reported that Charles later accused Cheryl of performing a coup de grace after his shotgun jammed. Charles claimed that Caril was one of the most trigger-happy people he had ever met. Caril denied ever having killed anyone, though. Charles was actually unfamiliar with the type of car that he had happened to just pick up. This car had this thing called a parking brake in it and didn't really know how to let go of that in order to drive. While Charles was struggling to drive away, the car stalled because the brakes had not been released. He had messed with it for a good chunk of time until a man by the name of Joe Sprinkle stopped to help them. Charles threatened the man with a rifle, but at that moment, a sheriff ran onto the scene. Of course, Caril, being the hardcore right-hand man, decided to take it upon herself after seeing the sheriff start rolling up saying, hey, yo, this is Starkweather. He's gonna kill me. Oh my god, I don't know what happened. Oh my god. Charles then decided to speed off, understandably. If you have a car, why not use it? They were exceeding speeds in this hardcore police chase at around 100 miles per hour. One of the sheriffs in pursuit of Charles decided to fire a bullet at him. It hit a point where it shattered the front bit of his windshield and a piece of glass cut Charles' ear. Charles thought this was the end of him, like he had been fatally injured. So then he pulled over and surrendered so he can receive medical attention. The pair was obviously arrested and then they were tried in Nebraska. At first, Charles started saying the story that he forced Caril to come along, that she wasn't an accomplice but more of a hostage. He then started changing his story a lot. It then hit a point that Charles was saying, oh yeah, she was totally my accomplice. We were so down to do all of this killing, man. Caril maintained her innocence hardcore, saying that she was in fact a hostage and that she wasn't willing to do any of the things that were happening. Unfortunately for her, though, no one believed her. No one did at all. Charles Starkweather was only tried and found guilty on the murder of Robert Jensen and was then sentenced to death. On June 25th of 1959, Charles was executed by electric chair. Because there was evidence suggesting that Caril had opportunities to leave, she received a life sentence as an accomplice. Caril, despite having a life sentence, only served 17 years. She was paroled in June of 1976. Caril has actually cropped up in the news a decent bit. In 2014, there was a car crash in which she survived. There was an article posted about that. I don't usually see news articles on like car crashes unless it's super severe. Maybe it's because of the fact that she was kind of an accomplice to this thing, so maybe that's why it's important. On February 18th of 2020, Caril was actually trying to receive a pardon. She claims that she was abducted by Charles and that she never was willing to do any of the things that had happened in the time that Charles was like going around murdering people. So, I mean, what do you think about this? Do you think that Caril actually is innocent? Or is she just kind of trying to hype it up just so that she can maybe get another ounce of attention? Let me know. Interestingly enough, this pair and duo per se has actually cropped up a good bit in terms of the media that we consume. In 1994, there was a movie called Natural Born Killers that was actually pretty much inspired by the events that Charles and Caril had taken themselves upon doing. There's a movie that came out in 2004 called Starkweather, which, I mean, you can kind of guess. It's literally in the name. Stephen King was actually reportedly influenced by a lot of the murders that had happened around that time by Charles. There's even a Bruce Springsteen song released in 1982 by the name of Nebraska, and it features, guess what, Charles and Caril. It basically kind of tells like a first-person account of the events, so pretty interesting. And this brings us to the end of Charles and Caril's story. Charles dying at 20 and Caril still kicking. There were a lot of twisted turns and very interesting things in this one. The idea that Caril might actually not even be a bad person in this is very fascinating. The fact that she's proclaimed her innocence for as long as she has is just wild to me. She hasn't lived it down, and it might be something that she takes till her deathbed. But how do you feel about this whole thing, everyone? Let me know in the comments below. Before we hop in, though, I would like to thank my Patreons because you guys are worthy of that, because I do appreciate it. Caden, Dark Moon 2, Christopher, Snake Girl, Rylan, and Lint. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. I genuinely do appreciate your support. Thank you. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed the video, why not like and subscribe? It definitely helps me out. If you didn't, why not dislike? And let me know what I can improve on for next time. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you on the next one.